mood today, you know what I'm saying? We're kind of in that mood today. How are we doing, fellas? How are we doing? We got another episode today. Someone's got to be keeping count. It's got to be like 30 plus, right? 30 plus, something like that. Oh shit. I am not prepared for this. Hold up. Give me a second. I got so many drinks. I have 4 bottles right now. We got a lot to talk about today. We got a change of plan. Ooh, that was scary.
Dedicated to all the teachers that told me I never amount to nothing. To all the people that lived above the buildings that I was hustling from that called the police on me when I was just trying to make some money to feed my daughter. And all the niggas in the struggle, you know what I'm saying? It's all good, baby. It was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine.
I know somebody recommended a song, and trust me, I read all the comments. I just can't reply to every single comment just because it's a little bit harder for me on YouTube. I got Instagram, I got YouTube, I got TikTok. It's a lot. It's a lot to deal with. Especially, I wouldn't necessarily coin myself as I am an influencer, a fitness influencer, but my job is an online coach, right? That is how I make my living. So that comes first, right? And December, it's a very busy time of year for me. I'm about to close up shop. I'm almost at capacity. I know a lot of coaches say that, but it's very typical, especially around this time of year, because what you do in the winter influences what you're going to look like in the summer. And since not everybody, but a lot of people's goal is to look a little bit more shredded on a beach, or be able to take their shirt off, or be more comfortable when it's hotter out, which is a completely normal and understandable goal. And I can help you reach that. So if you guys are interested in coaching, look at the plug. But if you guys are interested in learning from me, or you wanted to work with me, go to my Instagram or my TikTok. There's a link tree, or I think it's a beacons.ai link. You click it, and the top link is a link to my WhatsApp, where we can have a little conversation. I can send you over the packages that I offer, and we can see if it works with you. But other than that, how are you guys doing? Are you guys doing good? Is it how's the weather over there? I don't know who I'm talking to. I'm talking to all of you, but for me, it's kind of chilling. Usually the weather in Vancouver it's very unpredictable during the winter time. Sometimes, I don't think we had snow last year either, to be honest. I don't like snow, especially because I go to a gym that's 30 minutes away from me. So I would have to lift at the home gym. But the benefit of me lifting at the home gym is that I would actually have an excuse to stream a workout. Now, I definitely cannot stream at my gym. There's no way. It's too busy. It would mess with my training session way too much. But it kind of is a little throwback from when I was in Houston, and I threw up my first ever gym stream. Is anybody who's watching this, were you guys in that stream? I think I had like 500 viewers or something like that. It was crazy. And no mic, nothing. It was just budget. Now I have all the goodies. I got all the sauce. So next time I go to Houston, which I'm planning, we'll see sometime January, February, early next year. So hopefully we can get some nice collabs, and maybe make a video with Mundy. That's someone who I'm really excited to chop it up with. Cameras or not, I think of Mundy as a role model, honestly, in the sense of how he carries himself and what he's done with his social media. Holy glaze, I know. Other than that, I'm excited. I'm excited for what's to come. But with that being said, let's get started. What are we going to talk about today? What am I up to? It's been pretty eventful, I'm not gonna lie. It's been a pretty eventful year. I'm blessed. It's been one of the best years of my life, outside of the last 2 months. But other than that, it's been really, really good. So hopefully the same to you guys. But with that being said, where are we at? Where are we at with our caloric status? Where are we at with our goals? What do we want to accomplish? What are we currently doing? Well, over the past I finished my diet in October, okay? I believe October something. And that's when I looked the absolute best. Now, I was incredibly lean, too lean, or not too lean, I was incredibly light, okay? Very, very light. Light enough to where I wouldn't want to announce how light I was on social media. But let's just say that I was incredibly light for my height and training age, being I'm 6 feet and I've been training I'm on my 12th year of training. But regardless of that, there's, I think it was like October 11th or something like that. I took this like picture. It was a side chest, and it was the leanest and in my opinion the best I've ever looked. But it goes to show the issue with social media, because you would look at that picture and you would think that like, holy shit, and I'm not trying to glaze myself, but you would think like, holy shit, like this guy's, okay, I gotta put my sunglasses on. 1 second. You would think like, holy shit, this guy's like actually big, but okay, that doesn't work. I'm getting cooked, Chad, I'm getting cooked. I can't see. This is the issue with having blue eyes, is they're incredibly sensitive to light, and I can't see shit. And these are too blurry. Okay, are we good? Can you guys see me? I don't know why you wouldn't be able to see me. What a stupid comment. Holy, wake up. What was I even talking about? Oh yeah, so when I was my lightest and I looked the sickest in the mirror, that's when I'm the absolute smallest, right? Because obviously I'm not gonna pull the whole natty cope and whatever, but I'm not the biggest guy. I don't have the most impressive physique. What happens when you get extremely lean is when you take your shirt off and you're in good lighting, you have good angles and stuff like that, it makes you look way more impressive than you actually are. And I made this video, and when you're walking around the gym floor, you're not posing, you don't have the camera super close to you, and you take a peep in the mirror, you get a glance of reality, and that reality is your victim weight, and you look like a victim. And I'm not trying to be negative, it's just realistic. A lot of people are like, oh, you got a good physique, I'm not trying to say that I don't, but I'm just trying to be realistic and tell you guys that this is an honest representation of how I look at things, right? Like I'm a coach, I coach general population, I coach bodybuilders. Genetics are everything, right? And I'm not saying that I have the absolute worst genetics in the world, like my structure isn't all right, buddy, let's go. My structure isn't like the best thing ever, and my ability to put on muscle tissue is obviously not S tier, right? Because I would be much heavier at my body fat percentage if it was, because realistically, chances are you're doing everything already right. That was a big talk of this video. You're probably already doing all the right things. You just need to do it for longer. Like you're probably already eating enough protein. Your training program is probably within the realms of what is quote unquote optimal. The pursuit of muscle growth is incredibly forgiving. It is incredibly forgiving. There's I think it's 1,000 different ways to skin a cat. But you could use, I think I used this like saying on a TikTok. You could use like scissors, or you could use like an electric razor. So obviously there's going to be differences in how fast you reach that end goal, but chances are you're probably already doing all the right things, and it's not this new training split or this new exercise technique or this new rep range or leaving a rep in the tank or eating this specific food or any of the above combined with one another. That's not going to be the reason why you haven't reached your goals. It's time, it's consistency, it's adherence, it's genetics, right? Everything works. Resistance training works. Shocker. So you just got to keep doing what you're doing. Follow the basics in terms of relatively lower rep ranges, lifting at least twice a week. I would prefer 3 times a week, but twice a week. Choosing relatively stable exercises and sticking to that for a very long period of time. Stop changing your program, stop changing your exercises, stop changing your technique. Don't lift with ego. Don't go into huge surpluses. Maintain your current body fat percentage and just focus on the gym. The gym and training is by far the most important variable when it comes to your physique development. 100%. Everything influences your training performance, and training performance is paramount. That is everything, right? Sleep deprivation, training performance, caloric status, whether you're eucaloric, hypercaloric, hypocaloric, training performance. Training performance will dictate whether or not you will reach your desired physique goals. You have to stop thinking about it, oh, if I'm dieting, I'm looking at just like regressing muscle or maintaining muscle. If I'm in a surplus, I'm building muscle. If I'm at maintenance, I'm not building anything. Like, you got to stop from that older way of thinking, and you have to just understand that all the different caloric statuses or statuses, I don't know the specific word right now because I can't think, that's just going to influence energy availability, which again will play on things like motivation. Your brain recognizes low glycogen stores and will produce a feeling of tiredness, and this is going to be a form of supraspinal CNS fatigue. And the more supraspinal CNS fatigue that you have, you will reach your maximum tolerable perception of effort sooner, right? So this is why you want to do things like focus on your sleep when you're dieting, make sure that you are eating enough carbohydrates, making sure that you introduce all of these different strategies to help boost and increase motivation. Therefore, you're able to raise your maximum tolerable perception of effort. I can't pronounce that word, tolerable. I think it's because I'm trying to speak too fast. But yeah, I'm off the rails right now. Hold up, give me a second. So, with that being said, I'll start. I think I just went off on a tangent. I don't even know where I was trying to go with that. But so October 11th, I was the lowest weight. I was down bad with my calories. My steps were crazy high. I don't believe I had the walking pad yet. Maybe I did. I'm not too sure. I think I did. But I reversed out of it, got myself to a healthy maintenance. And then I decided to push the boundaries because I'm a very extreme individual. It's something that I wanted to test. I wanted to eat a lot of food. I took it too far. I overestimated my maintenance. I overestimated my total daily energy expenditure, and I gained body fat, right? And the goal of me getting that lean wasn't to hop on stage. It was to hold a very lean level of body fat, because pictures and collabs, and I like being very, very lean. Obviously, I'm not going to be the biggest individual, and sometimes training sucks, but you have to stay at that body fat percentage for a sustained period of time so your body can adapt. Remember that we have something known as a body fat set point, but it is a dual intervention. I believe it's called dual intervention model. So you are able to adjust that set point over time to a certain extent. Obviously, when we're talking about 4 or 5% body fat, I know Lizzo is a good example of that. But anyway, with that being said, I put on some body fat. I've gained, I mean, from now, I'm like 10 pounds heavier. But at my peak, I was like 15 pounds heavier since October. Now, I was eating 5,700 calories a day for at least 3 to 4 weeks, and when you eat that much food, remember, that's like 1,000 to 1,100 grams of carbs, okay? For every gram of glycogen you store binds an additional 3 grams of water, 3 to 4. So that's going to be a significant amount of weight that's not fat. You're also going to have just the sheer amount of food volume in your stomach. When you're eating 5,700 calories a day, that's like 2 pounds of just food. Then you have waste, you have inflammation from, my training has been peak, right? So I went from not having the best training to having really good training, so inflammation from training is going to be up. So I have predicted that it was roughly, in the worst case scenario, and I'm not even trolling, 6 to 7 pounds of body fat, probably closer to 5-6 pounds of body fat, according to my calculations. So obviously this has been especially with the additional body fat, as well as me eating like a pig in the sense of just all the carbs in the world, which in all honesty, it gets to a point, and I'm not even trolling, like you really don't need 1,000 grams of carbs to do a full body training session where you're doing 1 set per exercise. You're lifting in like the 4 to 6 rep range. You just don't need it, right? We're not endurance athletes. We are not running marathons here or triathlons. You don't need as many carbs as you really think, right? I believe 3 to 5 grams per kilogram of body weight would be like a good minimum. Obviously you could do with more. There is a point of diminishing returns, and I believe it's like 900. I don't know. I think that it really depends on how much muscle you have, obviously, when it comes to how much glycogen you can actually store. But regardless, I don't like to use those arbitrary values, because you should just set up your macros in a way where you keep protein at a specific point, right? 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. You have your fats as low as you possibly can whilst maintaining optimal hormone production, and you feel good, and then the rest of the carbs are allocated towards the rest of the calories are allocated towards carbohydrates, right? That's very simple. So I wouldn't necessarily go based on an arbitrary value, but I'm losing the plot. I need someone to keep me on the plot. Hold up. And I need to start drinking my drinks. You guys are distracting me. No, I'm just kidding. Hold up, give me a second. I'm gonna try to not lose my train of thought. What is this? Okay, so we'll call it 6 pounds. We'll call it 6 pounds of fat, probably less. So what am I gonna do, right? Obviously, I overestimated my maintenance. It's very common, everybody does this. I was also enjoying food a little bit, probably more than I should have, but it's perfectly fine. When you do something like that, it's always reversible. But again, if you want quick results, you want quick and excellent results, it's going to take effort and it's going to take sacrifice, okay? So now what do you do in this situation? Do you sit at your new body fat percentage? Are you happy with it? You are the deciding factor of what you want to do with your physique. There's no rule in to say that, like, oh, you can only diet once a year, you can only diet twice a year. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this is the smartest thing to do, because this is essentially yo-yo dieting, right? You go into a maintenance phase. It's not really maintenance after a diet. You go into a surplus, you quote unquote bulk. You gain a bunch of body fat, and then you diet again, and then you rinse and repeat, and you go through these cycles. And this is what happens to a lot of individuals, and this is how you stop making progress, especially as an intermediate to advanced lifter. Because now, I'm not saying that you can't build muscle in a deficit. You definitely can, but if you are in an aggressive deficit and you have low energy availability, this is 100% going to hinder the rate of muscle growth, 100%. So I still believe that you're going to be able to build close to or even at the maximum rate of muscle growth in a slight to moderate calorie deficit, assuming that your total daily energy expenditure is not in the dumps. So you can have, for example, enough carbohydrates, enough protein, enough fats to support healthy hormone production and function. But if you're in an aggressive deficit, chances are no. Most likely not, and it's going to hinder your rate of growth, right? So then in that state, you are just purely looking at retaining muscle tissue, right? And how do we retain muscle tissue? Well, we need sufficient amounts of protein and we need sufficient amounts of training stimulus. So as long as you are maintaining strength in the gym and you're eating sufficient protein, you are not going to be losing, if any, muscle, contractile tissue. Lean body mass loss you will lose, because obviously you are eating less carbohydrates, you're going to be storing less glycogen, you're going to have less food volume, less waste, less inflammation, and all of that, those are examples of lean body mass. Even poo is an example of lean body mass. This is why when you look at studies and they're using DEXA, you have to take this into consideration. Hold up, I don't want to get nuked by these cops here. Okay, I think we're good. So, what am I going to do? I keep beating around the bush. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little reset. We'll call it the Great Reset. I'm going to look to get myself back into the position that I was. My training is standardized. I'm not in the corner anymore. I love my training. My motivation is high to train. It'll probably take me less than 2 weeks to do this because my maintenance is so high. And the reason why my maintenance is so high is because my expenditure is so high. I'm still upkeeping my level of expenditure. And remember, this is possible because I'm keeping a high expenditure. It's nothing drastic in terms of me doing very fatiguing forms of cardio. It's just brisk walking, right? I'm gonna drop the incline walking during this period just to make sure that my heart rate stays relatively lower because I'm already gonna be in a state of increased muscle protein breakdown, and I don't want to stress my body any more than it actually is, and I'm creating such a huge deficit from food alone that it really isn't needed. So if there is roughly 3,500 calories in a pound of fat, and I want to lose 5 to 6 pounds of fat, if I have, say, a 2,000 calorie deficit per day, we are going to be looking at what is that, 4 pounds of fat a week, right? Now obviously it doesn't all play out like that, okay? There are plenty of factors that kind of limit your fat loss, and I'm not talking about maximum fat oxidation rates, although that there is such a thing as max fat oxidation. It's just absolutely not 31 calories per pound of fat. They're actually, Alpert, the main man who was the main man on that study, he essentially made an adjustment to that number. Now, I can't recall the number off the top of my head, but all it is to say is that number is based on the Minnesota starving experiment. So we have individuals who were not eating sufficient protein and they were not resistance training. And those two things are paramount in any negative energy state. So hypocaloric state, calorie deficit. So with that being said, I'm slashing my calories for probably a week or two. I'm gonna have a nice meal during Christmas. I'm gonna get myself back to where I was. I want to be comfortable, especially when I'm taking posing videos and stuff like that. It got to the point where I was just so bloated and I just didn't like the way that I looked. That this has just been my decision. It's gonna make me happier, and I'm perfectly fine with taking a little bit of an L on the gaining for a little bit. And then what I will do is I will show you my attempts at maintaining a very lean physique. So I've already made up my mind, this is what I'm doing. So yeah, so in terms of how am I setting this up, I'm keeping my activity the same. I'm dropping the incline steps. I'm just gonna be flat walking 2 miles per hour. In terms of protein, the reason why most people say, you should be increasing your protein when you're in an aggressive cut because of the negative nitrogen balance. Remember that the study done from Eric Helms and colleagues that said around 3.1 to 3.2 grams per kilogram of fat-free mass or pound, I can't remember, but it's up to 1.5 grams of protein per pound of body weight could help reduce the risk of fat-free mass. This is not taking into account carbohydrate. They didn't equate for carbs and fats. So that is a massive piece of the puzzle, right? Because for fats, you have things like EFAs, so essential fatty acids. So if you are supplementing with enough omega-3s, I recommend 2 to 3 grams of EPA plus DHA combined, right? That is important. And then as far as omega-6, you are okay with dropping your omega-6 rather low for shorter periods of time. Again, this is not medical advice. I think I have to say consult with a doctor. I've been doing this for a long time, so this is just what works. And then protein, I put protein anywhere between 0.8 to 1 gram. I would err a little bit on the higher side just for insurance, but remember that everything comes back to training performance. If you notice that your training performance is dipping, then you can play with, okay, maybe I need a little bit more protein. But the main thing here is going to be carbohydrates due to, one, not having the low glycogen stores enough for your brain to recognize the low glycogen stores and produce that feeling of tiredness. So that will be a stressor. I'm making sure that my sleep is good, my stress is good. My frequency is 3 to 3.5 times, which is what you want, especially when you're dieting. And my volume is rock bottom. I'm doing 1 set per exercise. I even do 1 set per exercise, even at maintenance. I almost never do 2 sets. Sometimes, but it's very, very rare. And because this is going to be so short in duration, I will be able to maintain and even improve my training performance 100%. So I'm aiming for around 150 to 175 grams of protein per day. My fats are around 25 grams, and my carbohydrates are around 200 to 300 grams. I do follow a non-training day, training day approach. Again, this is me. No, I'm not going to answer questions about my specific macros or why I've chosen them. Again, if you want individual help, I would be very happy to help you, but apply for coaching. So with that being said, the carbohydrates are going to be protein sparing. Again, all of this comes down to training performance, everything. When it comes to your macros, when it comes to your sleep, your stress, the timing of your carbohydrates, all of it has to do with your training performance. So if you are, for example, if you've kept in the same lying leg curl, the same leg curl, the same leg extension, the same lateral raise, the same bicep curl, the same chest fly, all of these isolation movements, because isolation movements are going to be less affected than these compound movements when it comes to leverages and internal moment arm lengths changing from lower glycogen and you losing weight, then that is going to be your indicator if you are maintaining or even building muscle in a deficit, right? So make sure that you are tracking your lifts, make sure that you are using a logbook. And yeah, it's really that simple. Now, it's not easy, but there are studies to indicate that hunger levels don't actually increase in an aggressive deficit compared to that of a moderate deficit, which is very interesting, and it's a topic that I could actually get into probably in the next video because I'm about to turn into the gym. So it's a matter of just staying focused, getting it done, not losing sight of your goals, realizing that you are doing this for a purpose. It's going to be over quick. At the end of the day, you could choose to diet slower and have more energy, or you could choose to diet faster, have less energy, but significantly greater fat losses. And in my experience, the same, if not any, contractile tissue loss. I personally have lost 42 pounds in 7.5 weeks. That is the most extreme diet I've ever ran. And it was essentially ran using the same principles that I'm talking about right now. 0.8 grams to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, probably aiming closer to that 1 gram mark, just to give yourself a little bit more insurance. Keeping carbs high, keeping fats low, make sure that you are supplementing with omega-3s, make sure that you're supplementing with a multivitamin to ensure that you are not having deficiencies, and making sure that your frequency is high, making sure that your volume is low, and you get it done. You get it done. That is personally my preference when it comes to dieting. I just don't want to recommend this for a lot of people, especially if you don't have, if you're not in tune with your body, if you're not, if you don't have the greatest relationship with food, because you know, binging and all that stuff. But the benefit of aggressive dieting is, again, remember, this is not for everyone. You're only going to be able to diet aggressively if your total daily energy expenditure is high enough to support you being able to be in a 1,500 or 2,000 calorie deficit per day, right? Not everyone's gonna, if you're a smaller individual, if you're a woman, you're not going to be able to be in that aggressive a deficit. You could still be in an aggressive deficit compared to that of a slight or moderate deficit. It's just not going to be something like 2,000 calories per day, right? Which again would equate to, you know, 3 to 4 pounds of fat loss per week. Now, obviously, due to adaptive thermogenesis, metabolic adaptation, these rates are going to decrease as the weeks go on, and especially if you are increasing activity as high as I am, and you are cranking down the calories, that metabolic adaptation is going to happen rather quickly. So it's kind of like a get in, get out type of mentality, but since I only want to lose 5 to 6 pounds of body fat, I should be able to get it done by the end of the year, and we'll look at maintaining that body fat percentage for, you know, future collabs and just my mentals. So yeah, that was a big yap. I'm hoping that I covered everything. I know there's a lot that I wanted to talk about on this episode, but I feel like I did cover everything. Oh yeah, so a couple things. What am I doing in training? So making sure that I'm prioritizing caffeine, right? Motivation. I've visualized my session. I'm using Tracked Training, my free training app. So I have numerical targets. I'm gonna listen to some sick music, right? I'm gonna change my playlist, get my motivation going. I'm out of cyclic dextrin. So what am I rocking here? This is just Gatorade. Literally 1 scoop of Gatorade. This is 100 calories, but it's worth it because I'm gonna be sipping on this. Every 10 minutes or so, I'm gonna take a sip, I'm gonna swig it around in my mouth for about 10 seconds, and I'm gonna drink it. You could spit it out if you wanna eat those 100 calories, but my total daily energy expenditure is so high that I can afford it. So this is going to help. This is carbohydrate mouth rinsing. This is going to help with that supraspinal CNS fatigue, to dissipate some of it. And then I got this bad boy here to help top up blood glucose and liver glycogen prior to training. Again, prevent some of that supraspinal CNS fatigue. And yeah, I also have light salt, which is something that I highly recommend you guys get. It is about 66% potassium, 33% sodium, and the rest iodine. These are incredibly important, potassium, sodium being electrolytes, potassium intracellularly, hydration, sodium extracellularly. So they're incredibly important. It's very hard to get potassium in, especially if you are aggressive dieting because you're not having things like potatoes and whatnot. But I highly recommend tap into low salt. It might be called half salt, might be called heart salt if you're from like Australia or Europe, but or salt substitute. You guys can find it at your local grocery store. I highly recommend it. Change the salt for low salt in all of your meals. Salt the shit out of your food. It's perfectly fine, especially when you're in a state of like a hypocaloric state and you're eating not the most carbohydrates or calories. You definitely want to increase sodium and by default increase potassium as well. But this has been a long episode. Hopefully you guys are doing well. Hopefully I spit some game. I know I'm gonna get questions. Again, I'm not gonna be answering questions about how to set up your aggressive diet. I'm not gonna tell you if it's okay to aggressive diet. Consult with your doctor. I'm just telling you what I'm currently doing. And if you're interested in working with me, click the link in my bio on my Instagram or TikTok, and I would love to have you. I have very few slots available for December and early the next year, but if you're thinking about it, get to it. Much love, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.